welcome back to another episode of BAMGPG. I'll be your host, Bryson.
And I'll be your co-host, Ben.
And today we're going to talk about some of the possible defensive ends for the Packers and what teams Aaron Rodgers can go to. If you haven't already, like and subscribe and check out our TikTok, BAMGPG.
That's right. Go ahead and follow us on both here with YouTube and on TikTok.
And if you haven't checked out our videos in a while, we actually did update our TikTok name, so.
We did, yep. So you can find us on TikTok, as Bryson mentioned, at BAMGPG. So, Bryson, let's get into it here. Let's kick it off with Aaron Rodgers here. So this is an interesting one, right? So the Jets, new head coach, right? Aaron Glenn coming in, really kind of brings that defensive mindset to the team, right? That's going to be their identity, right? So new regime, I'm guessing he just kind of wants to bring in his guy, right? Whoever that may be. I don't know if they plan on bringing in a veteran stopgap. If they were, it would probably make more sense to keep Aaron Rodgers on the team, right? But as we mentioned, new head coach, new direction. They're moving on from Aaron Rodgers. So what's that mean? That means Aaron Rodgers is going to be a free agent for the first time in his career, right? He's going to have the ability, if he decides to continue to play, which all indications point towards he is. I didn't get the sense from him last year that he's ready to hang it up yet. He is certainly aging. 41, I believe he's going to be 42 years old, but he's going to be looking for a new home. So that's going to mean a team that's looking for, at this point, to me, it's going to be a team that's looking for a stopgap, right? A veteran guy that they can bring in. If they feel like they're able to win now, they'll bring in a veteran guy like Aaron Rodgers and have that young guy behind him to learn and develop for over the next year or two, whatever service you do have left with Aaron Rodgers. So let's just take a quick peek before we get into some possible teams that may be interested in a player like Rodgers, right? So what kind of player are you getting at this point in his career? As we mentioned, he's 41, going to be 42, I believe, right? So let's take a look at his stats from this past season with the Jets.
Yeah. Overall grade 77.8, 18th in the league. Passing grade 76.3, 19th in the league. And rushing grade 71.9, 26th in the league. Attempts 584, second in the league. Passing touchdowns 28, 7th in the league.
Yep.
Passing yards 3,897, 8th in the league, and interceptions 1161st in the league.
Yeah, so really it wasn't a terrible season for Aaron Rodgers. It is in Aaron Rodgers standards, right? Not his best season, right? But if you look at it, the quarterback position just as a whole, it's a pretty solid season, right? He graded out at almost 80, 28 touchdown passes to only 11 interceptions.
Let's look at the season he won the Super Bowl with the Packers.
Let's see if I can go back to 2010. So right here is 2010.
Season he won the Super Bowl with the Packers.
Yep.
Overall grade 88.1, 5th in the league. Passing grade 88.8, 5th in the league also. Rushing grade 58.7, 24th in the league. Not the best rusher.
No, and he's been able to run. And we know Rodgers well, right? From his time at Green Bay, he was never known as an elite. I mean, he was a good rushing quarterback when he needed to be, He did have his legs where he could, break off 15, 20 yards when he needed to. But at this point in his career, rushing's out the window for him, right? 42-year-old quarterback. You're not, if you're going to have him rushing, it's probably good things aren't going to happen at this point. But yeah, as you mentioned, and it's interesting you picked the Super Bowl season in 2010 because if you look at the touchdown to interception ratios, exact same as what they were this year, 28 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. So all indication is the guy can still play.
Yeah.
Right? He certainly, to me, he's more than serviceable. He graded out at almost 80, 28 to 11, almost 4,000 passing yards. He had a great season. When we think of Aaron Rodgers, we think of that 4,500 passing yards on the season type of guy. 35 plus touchdowns with single digit interceptions, right? That's your typical, hey, that was a good season for Aaron Rodgers. Down a little bit from that this year.
Let's check with his, prime season.
Yeah, so when we think about maybe some of his most recent success, so let's pull up 2020, so kind of the COVID year. MVP that year, right?
Oh, yeah, he was amazing this year. Not this year, but the year when it happened.
Yeah, so this would have been an MVP season for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, overall grade 94.5 first in the league. Passing grade 94.3 first in the league. And I'm just not going to say his rushing grade because it's bad.
Yeah, again, he's never been known as an elite rusher, right? He's been a good rusher, never an elite rusher.
Attempts 526, 13th in the league. Passing touchdowns 48, first in the league. Passing yards 4,299, 1 yard away from 4,300.
Yeah.
7th in the league that year. And interceptions 542nd in the league out of 80 quarterbacks.
Yes, that's an interesting one. They must be taking into account a lot of backups on that one because to only have 5 interceptions throughout the course of an entire season is fantastic, right? I would almost wonder if you break that down to just starters, that's probably top in the league, right? So, again, this was an MVP type of season. It was an MVP season for him, 48-5 and 42. And that's, we think of Aaron Rodgers, that's kind of what we think of, is 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 4,300 yards, right? But if you just looking at this year's stats compared to, other quarterbacks, he had a great season, right? It's down from what we think of, as I was mentioned, just kind of picturing Aaron Rodgers in your head, it's down from what you anticipate him having. But put that aside, he had a good season for a quarterback, right? So he's certainly still playing at a high level. Can he move like he used to? Can he get out of the pocket and run and do all that other stuff? That's probably not in his arsenal at this point in his career, right? Because he is 41, so he's going to be 42 years old. But still, the guy can sling it, right? You have the right weapons around him. He's still going to be able to put up big numbers.
He's playing exactly like he did in his Super Bowl season.
Yeah, absolutely. You're still getting that level of that caliber of quarterback, right? If you have a team that can protect him, give him 3-4 seconds. 4 is probably asking a lot, but give him 3+ seconds in the pocket. He's going to carve you up still, right? So what's that mean, right? So as we mentioned, it's probably going to take a team that has great talent around him, right? They have a win now ready team. They're just missing a quarterback right now. Like
the Vikings.
Yeah, that was the first team that came to my mind, right?
I hope not.
Me too. It reminds you so much. I doubt it, but I would never say never, right? But it reminds you so much of the Brett Favre situation where he went out, traded him to the Jets there after just a year or two, found his way to Minnesota and found instant success there. that would be an interesting team, right? Because they have a young quarterback in waiting. He is coming off a year-long injury, so I don't know if you kind of want to put that type of pressure on him where you're going to say, hey, you're our guy next year. Or if they bring in a veteran guy. I don't think they're probably going to bring in Sam Darnold, right? Because Sam Darnold's probably going to test free agency, see what he can do. Darnold's probably going to want that multi-year big contract, right? And he certainly deserved it off his performance on the field this year. So Minnesota, to me, is an interesting one, just right off the jump, right? Because, as we know, fantastic wide receiver core. You got Addison, Justin Jefferson, tight end, Hawkinson, and running back's a little bit of a question mark right now. Aaron Jones is a free agent again. But that's certainly a team that could use his services, right? If they decide, hey, we're going to sit our young quarterback for another year, let him develop, learn behind a veteran, Aaron Rodgers would be the perfect fit for that. As much as it would pain me to go through that again, but if everything kind of comes to fruition like it did with Favre, where Favre left New York, came to Minnesota, and then, just a season or two later, Aaron Rodgers won his first Super Bowl with the Packers. Now, if that means, that leads to a Jordan Love winning a Super Bowl with the Packers, hey, let's sign me up for it, right? But it certainly would keep Minnesota formidable if they brought in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to see it personally. I'd hate to see Aaron Rodgers because I still am partial to Rodgers, right? All those years of service to Green Bay, how could you not like the guy for what he did for us? He brought a Super Bowl to Titletown, right? But so I'd hate to see him in the purple color, right? Just like I hated seeing Aaron Jones in the purple color this year. Still love Aaron Jones, great person. He was a good teammate when he was in Green Bay, but you hate to see him in that purple, right?
Yeah.
But to that same token, it would be fun to see a Jordan Love versus Aaron Rodgers matchup, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be really fun. I've been wanting to see it for so long.
You know me secretly too. I've been kind of eyeing the Jets, hoping they'd find their way to our schedule here when they had Rodgers. Just never seemed to work out. But boy, would it be fun to see those two go at it, right?
Yeah.
In Minnesota, you'd see it twice a year. You'd get it once on the road and then once at Lambeau. You'd have that'd be a fun game to be at, right? Aaron Rodgers returning to Lambeau Field to take on Jordan Love and the Packers.
We definitely go to that one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, to me, number one, that's a team that makes complete sense to me if Minnesota still decides they want to develop the quarterback, right? What's another team that you could possibly see, kind of reaching out to Rodgers and using his service for a year or two?
Yeah, maybe the Falcons.
I could see the Falcons, but I think they're probably going to go down the path of, because they have, remind me of his name down there, Penix.
Michael Penix.
Yeah, so they have Penix Jr. down there. I think they're probably going to just run with him. That would be my assumption. He played well down the stretch last year. Well enough to have him in playoff contention, right?
Maybe like the Saints?
I could see the Saints, but I think they're, just kind of listening to their new coach today, the Eagles offensive coordinator there. It kind of sounds like they're pretty set on Derek Carr going into next season as their quarterback.
Really?
A couple teams. I'll throw out a couple teams to you, Bryce, and tell me what your initial thoughts are. So he's got some history. They seem to like each other. The head coach of this team, Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin. They seem to have a lot of mutual respect between the two. And Pittsburgh looks like they're probably going to be moving on from Justin Fields and Wilson. That's the way it looks, right? They could certainly bring one of the two back, or bring both back, even. But they're a team that's seems content on, kind of bringing in a veteran presence and continuing on with that. So that would be a team that would make sense to me. And I don't know if I think we have Pittsburgh. We do have Pittsburgh on our schedule this year, but it would be an away game, so it wouldn't be a game at Lambeau, but it would be a game where we'd get to see Rodgers versus Love, right? And I think there's nothing definitive about it, but that may be the Ireland game this year.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Pittsburgh's got a game in Ireland this year, so there's been some rumors that it may be Green Bay playing against them there.
Aren't the Packers Ireland's favorite team?
Yeah, I think Green Bay does have a pretty big following there in Ireland. So who knows? Maybe it's Pittsburgh.
I can see why.
Yeah.
They're green.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense, right? But
aren't the Steelers their second favorite team?
I believe so. I think that's why Pittsburgh's playing there. I think they have a big following in Ireland as well. But that would be an interesting one. Jordan Love versus Aaron Rodgers in Ireland.
Yeah.
Right? If he were to go to Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh's a team that makes a ton of sense to me. And another team, I'm going to throw this out there, the Raiders.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So to me, Pete Carroll, as I mentioned, is going to be the oldest head coach in the league. Is he going to want to is he going to be patient enough to wait 2 or 3 years to develop a young quarterback, right? Or, I know Tom Brady's kind of helping lead the way with bringing that team back into relevance. So are they maybe going to add a few veteran pieces and try to compete this year, right? Hang on to Crosby.
It'd be interesting if Tom Brady came back.
That would be interesting, for sure. But the Raiders would be a team for me, right, that they would possibly look at. And then maybe it's a thing where you get Rodgers in Vegas and then Devontae goes back to Vegas as well. Kind of follows them around back there. So that would be another team. And then I'm going to throw this team out here, right? It's just kind of hitting out in the left field here. What about a team like the San Francisco 49ers? I know they have Brock Purdy, right?
But he did not play good this season.
No, he didn't. I don't know if the 49ers are sold on Purdy, right? So,
yeah. Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. In San Francisco, on paper, they're a good team still, right? They dealt with a ton of injuries this past season, but if they're able to come back healthy next year, maybe that's what they're one a quarterback play away from playing at a championship.
Because of the Madden curse?
Yeah, I know that Madden curse is a real thing with McCaffrey, right? He disappointed a lot of people, including myself this season, right? I had the first pick in one of my fantasy leagues this year, and I went with McCaffrey, so that one came back to burn me. Yeah.
But mine didn't. I made it to the championship round.
You did, yeah. You faced that adversity and were able to make it through it, right?
I just would have picked a different player in the first round.
Yes, I think you lost in the championship round, right?
I think so.
Yeah, but still, losing your first overall pick for basically the entire season, that was still impressive, right? But kind of digress here a little bit, Bryson. San Francisco, it would make sense, right? They have a roster that's built to win now. Right, and I don't know if they're sold on Brock Purdy. So Rodgers coming into San Francisco, he's from California right there. That was always kind of his favorite team growing up. So maybe that's where he kind of ends his career. Who knows? So that one's probably more of a wild card team to me. I don't think that one's a real high possibility of happening, but certainly could, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him this offseason. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about here real quick, Bryson, NFL free agents, right? Green Bay, three positions that I feel strongly that we need to address this offseason.
Wide receiver,
Yep.
cornerback,
Yep.
and defensive end.
And defensive end, absolutely. Those are three. So defensive end to me,
center too.
yeah, center will be something. And center could be something where we already have the guy on our roster, and it's something where we move a guard to center. So we'll see how that shakes out. But certainly need to add at the other positions, right? And defensive end, I know you probably have different priorities, but for me, getting that pass rush should be priority number one, right? So there could be some potentials out there as far as trade possibilities, but if we're looking strictly at free agents, so I have a few of them here that I liked, and we'll kind of run through them all real quick, right? So I got 4 of them here. So list them off here real quick. Khalil Mack, obviously, that would probably be my top guy in free agency, right? The other 3 that are out there that are interesting, Josh Sweat, I would probably put him at number 2. And then this one, I kind of go back and forth between 3 and 4, right? So Hassan Reddick and Chase Young, right? Those guys I go back and forth on 3, who I would, kind of rate 3 or 4, right? Hassan Reddick, as we know, had that holdout with the Jets this
I'd
past.
put Chase Young 3.
I probably would too, just because of you got to look at everything, right? Not just his production on the field, but what type of presence is he in the locker room? And the Hassan Reddick thing just kind of really left a bad taste in my mouth, the way he treated the Jets organization last year.
He's
right?
kind of like Jair.
He is, yeah, absolutely.
He plays good on the field, but he just doesn't want to play for the team.
Right, yeah. I mean, he can be a cancer in the locker room if he's not happy. So he's one of those guys that you really have to keep a close eye on, right? So for that reason, I probably would put Chase Young above him on the list. But nonetheless, let's just run through these guys real quick. So let's start with who to me, is the top free agent as far as defensive ends is, Khalil Mack.
Mm-hmm. Overall grade 90.4, fifth in the league. Pass rush grade 79.9, 16th in the league. And one defensive grade 88, second in the league. Solo tackles 24, 40th in the league. Sacks 7, 33rd in the league. Assists 3, 11th in the league. 115th in the league out of 211. And forced fumbles 2, 8th in the league.
Yeah, so he graded out a 90.4 at defensive end this year on PFF. So still a fantastic player. So if we go back 1 year, just kind of get a sense for level of production he's had over the past couple of years. So the year prior, 91.8. Yeah. So he's above 90 consecutive years. 18 sacks the year prior. Fantastic. If we can get a Khalil Mack where we can get 15 or plus sacks, it's what we need, right? We're kind of banging that drum all off season. Green Bay needs a pass rush.
Can you go down?
Yeah.
He was first in forced fumbles.
Yeah, with 6 on the year. So definitely a guy, despite his age, he's still playing at a very high level, right? So Khalil Mack, for that reason, Khalil Mack is the number 1 defensive end free agent for me, right?
Mm-hmm. And he's good in the locker room too.
Oh, absolutely. He's and as we mentioned, bringing in that veteran, he's going to be a guy that someone like Lucas Van Ness can really learn from, right? And allow him to just kind of flow into that rotational spot again, right? And kind of learn, because Van Ness is young, right? He's nowhere near hitting his prime. I think he's 22 years old, maybe. So
yeah, I think you usually hit your prime doing 25, 26.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look, Bryson. Let's go over to Josh Sweat, right? So he just played in the Super Bowl, had a fantastic Super Bowl. I believe he had 2 sacks. So he's proven production, right?
Yeah, overall grade 75.7, 28th in the league. Pass rush grade 71.5, 38th in the league. And one defensive grade 69.3, 48th in the league. Solo tackles 27, 28th in the league. Sacks 8, 26 in the league. Assists 7, 55th in the league. And forced fumbles 0, 85th in the league.
Yeah, so great player, right? And he'd be a perfect player if we're not able to get a guy like a Khalil Mack. He'd be a great addition to the defense, kind of put opposite of Rashawn Gary and really kind of take some of the pressure away from Gary, force him to bring it over to his side as well, really allow both of them to kind of play more free, right? So where was he the year prior?
Overall grade 68.3, 67th in the league. Pass rush grade 74.1, 41st in the league. And one defensive grade 53.3, 142nd in the league. Solo tackles 26, 39th in the league. Sacks 7, 45th in the league. Assists 10, 40th in the league. And forced fumbles 2, 13th in the league. Decent season.
Yeah, again, decent season. He's not a premier pass rusher, but he's certainly a guy that he would be an upgrade over what we currently have, right? And to me, it only makes everyone else better on that defensive line, including guys like Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, and some of the interior defensive linemen like Wyatt, and Kenny Clark, right? So he would make a ton of sense if we're unable to get a guy like Khalil Mack in there. And 27 years old, right? So he hasn't hit that, kind of 30 or above marker yet. So he's got a lot of good productive seasons left in him. So again, makes a ton of sense to me if we're not able to bring in a guy like Khalil Mack. Josh Sweat would make a ton of sense. Not going to be a real expensive guy, which gives you more flexibility to address other positions in free agency, right? Or via a trade.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at him. So let's go ahead and take a look. I believe you rated Chase Young a little bit over Hassan Reddick. So let's take a look at Chase Young real quick, okay?
All right.
So here's Chase Young this past season.
Yeah, overall grade 66.4, 72nd in the league. Pass rush grade 66, 67th in the league. One defensive grade 54.6, 153rd in the league. Solo tackles 19, 63rd in the league. Sacks 7, 33rd in the league. Assists 4, 102nd in the league. And forced fumbles 128th in the league. Not the best of seasons.
No, it's not. And a guy like Chase Young, one thing you got to worry about, right? He's had a history of injuries, so that's something to keep in mind. But still young. Chase Young's 25 years old. You got to remember that. So.
Oh, I thought he was like 30.
You kind of think that initially, right? But yeah, he's still 25 years old. That's all he is. So he's still.
Let's look at his previous season.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can go to 2023, take a look at him there.
Overall grade 74.4, 42nd in the league. Pass rush grade 75.8, 34th in the league. One defensive grade 60.8, 105th in the league. Solo tackles 12, 95th in the league. Sacks 10, 22nd in the league. Assist 1, 155th in the league. And forced fumbles 0, 80th in the league.
So pretty solid season. Again, we're talking about a 24-year-old that season. Year prior to that, again, a lot of these stats are going to be a little bit off just because of his injury history that he's had. But even the year 2022, graded out at almost 80 at being 22, 23 years old. So guy's got a lot of talent, a lot of just raw talent to him, right? And he's got good size to him, 6'5", 264. So he kind of fits that mold.
Just like the start of his prime.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just entering his prime.
He is, right. And he hasn't played against a guy or across from a guy like if you were to bring him in like a Rashawn Gary, right? So he gets a lot of extra attention when he is out there. So you insert him across from a Gary, that's only going to allow him to play better, right?
He plays with not a mediocre team. I feel like the Saints are secretly good.
They are. They're kind of sneaky good. Despite their record last season, you kind of break down that team. They're in a lot of close games, a lot of games that they could have won, a lot of games that could have went either way, right?
Not including the Packers game.
Yeah, we kind of handled them pretty easily at Lambeau. I think that was 34-0 at Lambeau that night.
That
So-
was the first blowout, shutout that year.
It was first
there was-
shutout of the season.
There
And-
was one more in the last week of the season against
Kansas City,
Houston.
right?
Yeah.
That's when Kansas City rested all their starters, I believe. But yeah,
against the
and
Broncos.
it was still a fun game to be at. It's not as close as some of the other ones we've been to, but it was the first time I've ever been to a shutout.
Me too.
Right, so it was still a fun game. It's a night game at Lambeau. You can't beat that. So it was still a fun game. I enjoyed it.
Blowout night game.
Yeah, I'll take it. But digressing from that a little bit, I think a guy like Chase Young, if you're able to kind of bring him in on a prove-it contract, makes sense for Green Bay to go out and get a guy like that, right? Still young, can still develop a little bit more than what he already has. And, if he's able to stay out on the field and stay healthy, there's no reason, he can't be productive for us, especially playing on the line with a guy like Rashawn Gary, right? And with having Lucas Van Ness, being able to rotate him in, we can kind of take some of the demand off him, maybe keep him a little bit healthier throughout the season as well. So I wouldn't be opposed to bringing in a guy like Chase Young, especially with his age, only being 25 years old. I think he's younger than Gary, actually. So
Is he?
I believe so. So he would make a lot of sense if he's able to stay healthy and if you're able to bring him in on the right contract, right? So
Yeah.
the last guy I wanted to talk about today, Hassan Reddick. Let's go ahead and just take a quick peek at him.
Oh,
So again, you kind of got to take these stats with a grain of salt a little bit, right? Because he held out for the majority of the season. It was one of those things where he agreed to come to New York on certain terms, and once he got there, said, "Oh no, wait, I don't want to play until my contract's renewed." Right? So he kind of did the Jets a little bit dirty on that, and then they were able to kind of get things squared away. So he did play the last few games of the season. There were some reports that he wasn't in football shape, right? So his time off, he wasn't doing anything to prepare himself to get back on the field. So I kind of question a guy like this. I kind of question his character a little bit on that, right? Mm-hmm. So again, these stats, probably not the best season to look at for his production. So I'm
not even gonna say them.
No, I'm just going to go back to 2023. That'll give us kind of a better picture what type of player he is. And he's 30 years old, so he's going to be 31 this coming season. So keep that in mind as well. And he's a little bit smaller. He's 6'1", 240. So as we know, Green Bay kind of likes those bigger, faster guys, especially at defensive end. So he doesn't really fit the mold as far as what Green Bay typically does at that position, but he's certainly still a productive player. So let's take a look at his 2023 stats here, Bryson.
Overall grade 75.2, 39th in the league. Pass rush grade 75.2, 36th in the league. And on defensive grade 64, 78th in the league. Solo attack was 21, 57th in the league. Sacks 13, 12th in the league. Assist 6, 73rd in the league. And forced fumbles 1, 36th in the league.
So a pretty solid season. The year prior to that, I believe that was with the Eagles. So I think that's probably the type of player you're gonna get if he comes in, in football shape, ready to play, doesn't have any of those locker room distractions, right? If he comes in on the right terms, has his head on straight, I think this is more of a reflection of the production you're going to get out of him. But let's just go back another year prior, right? Let's just kind of vet that out a little bit here. So here's 2022.
Overall grade 81.1, 24th in the league. Pass rush grade 90, 4th in the league. Run defensive grade 59.9, 114th in the league. Solo tackles 26, 34 in the league out of 203. Sacks 18, second in the league. Assists 2, 135th in the league. And forced fumbles 6, first in the league.
Yeah, so fantastic season, right? Graded out 81, 18 sacks, right? That's phenomenal. If he can get anywhere close to where he was at in the 2022 season, he'd be a great addition, right? Just, again, a couple things concern me with him, right? Where's his head going to be at, right? Are we going to get the Hassan Reddick of 2022, 2023, or are we going to get the Hassan Reddick of, this previous season where he's doesn't seem to be in the right place, right? If a team brings him in, he's not in football shape. If a team brings him in, he's a locker room distraction. Those are some of the negatives on him, right? I think you could probably bring him in on a more friendly contract, possibly, right? I'm not so sure of that based off this past season. But if you're able to get a guy who can get that level of production, he'd certainly be a welcome addition. To me, it's probably going to be a hard pass for me, right? Green Bay, you want to try to bring in those high character, high value guys, right? And so I would probably shy away from a guy like Hassan Reddick, but if he's able to get back to that level of production, he's gonna be great for whatever team does decide to bring him in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of there's more defensive ends available, but to me that's just kind of the tier list for me for what's out there. Khalil Mack, obviously number 1. Josh Sweat probably number 2 for me. Chase Young number 3. I feel like I'm missing one here. Hassan Reddick, depending on what Hassan Reddick you're getting, would be a great addition as well. The other thing with Reddick, I'll touch on it real quick. Again, his size, 6'1", 240, a little bit undersized for a defensive end, but he's certainly been productive at that size as well. So, yeah, that's kind of my rundown. So of that list, Bryson, who would be your top 2 targets if you're Green Bay this offseason?
Khalil Mack and Chase Young.
Khalil Mack and Chase Young. I would not mind that one bit, right? I certainly would welcome either one of the players. Khalil Mack would obviously kind of be my top target on that.
But he's also old.
He is older, right? So you maybe got another 2 years at best with him. Chase Young, the sky's the limit for him. He's still 25 years old. So those are probably my top 2. I kind of go back and forth on Sweat as well, right? So between Sweat and Chase Young, it's kind of a coin flip for me on the 2. But absolutely, Khalil Mack still would be my top guy because we're looking for, that solidified defensive end. It's proven year in, year out, and Khalil Mack certainly has done that. So that would be my top, and then, flip a coin between Sweat and Chase Young for number 2. So that's all I got for today's episode, Bryson.
And as always,
Go Pack Go.